Hello, everybody. Our last page of notes for this packet. Are we super excited? Say woohoo! All right, turn to page 8 of your notes. Remember, you can pause this at any time if you need to write some things down, and then start it back up again. All right, so our Kingdom Plantae and Kingdom Animalia will be our last two units or two groups for this unit. And then you can start working on your review. Yay! Super excited. All right, so top of page 8, there are 3 spaces under characteristics. And if you look on the screen here, it will show you those 3 blanks a little bit out of order. So if you look here, this is number 1, the first space, number 2, and number 3. So they are eukaryotic, which means, who remembers? Gone over this word so many times. Oops. Cannot get deeper right on this thing, but I'm working on it. So this is number 1. Eukaryotic means has a nucleus. Number 2, it's multicellular. And number 3, it is autotrophic, which means it makes its own food. And this does not mean you go into the kitchen to make yourself a sandwich. They have a chloroplast that will take in the sun's energy and convert it into glucose. That's what we mean by autotrophic. They have 3 organ systems. We haven't really seen organ systems in any detail yet before plants, but they have leaves, which are 1 organ. They have stems and they have roots, much like your organs of hearts, lungs, etc. That is the organs of the plant. They can reproduce sexually or asexually. Right now, many of you may be in the same boat as me, where you are having a really big problem with plant sperm. Plant sperm is hanging out here on the anthers of the male part of the plants. The wind is blowing them out, or maybe it's a butterfly, or maybe it's a bee that is bringing that pollen. We're going to land here on the stigma of the female part of the plant. The pollen is going to go down and it is going to reproduce with the egg. Then we will have a new plant start to form like so. So right now, allergies are coming in full force because everything is pollinating. There is plant sperm all over the air, aggravating people's eyes like mine, or your nose, or your sinuses, or your head, whatever part it is, excuse me. They can also reproduce asexually because some plants have both male and female parts, and they can self-fertilize. But if you remember, self-fertilizing, that's going to be cloning, that's going to be no genetic variation. Also, for characteristics of plants, they have part of their cell wall is made up of a substance called cellulose. If you remember when we talked about fungi, they had a cell wall made of chitin, and our bacteria had peptidoglycan, so different kingdoms have different kinds of cell wall. And we call this cellulose fiber in our everyday language, and it is just a component of their cell wall that we can't actually digest. So when we're eating plant material and we get this fiber, it is going to go straight through our digestive system, and it is going to help us, yes ma'am, yes sir, it's going to help us poop. Many Americans have to take fiber supplements because they don't consume enough plant material and they can't poop. So they have to drink Metamucil or eat Fiber One bars so that they can get fiber simply to poop. You could avoid that altogether by just eating a healthy diet full of plant material. So that's what I wanted you to write on, oh, like, actually, I think I skipped one. Yeah, well, And on that fourth line there, I had a picture, but I don't know where it went. I want you to write, they store their extra sugar as cellulose. When we talk about animals here in a minute, we're going to see that we store our extra sugar as something else. So line number 4 there is store their extra sugar as cellulose. Now, plants first began in the water, like all organisms, because if you remember, land was nasty. We had volcanic eruptions, we had cyanide gas and methane. Nothing could live up there. It was a horrible place to be. So everything was living in the water. But eventually, plants were the first thing to move out of the water onto land. So if you think about it, at this point, every living organism on the planet, bacteria, protists, fungi, everything was living in the water. Over time, that would make it pretty crowded in there. So if plants could evolve in such a way that they could survive on land, that would be beneficial. And on your notes, it says there are benefits for plants to live on land, and they are as follows. Write this down. Number 1, there's more space. Remember, you can pause this if you need to. Number 2 is more sunlight. 3, more nutrients in the soil. 4, less competition. And 5, fewer predators, at least at first. Now there's a ton of predators. Maybe you need to go back to the water plants. So when plants first moved to land, they had a problem of drying out because they were used to being in the water. So now plants have a thick area on the surface called the cuticle. And that is that thick, waxy kind of surface that you'll find on the covering of plants. If you find a plant that is usually living in the desert, then they have a really thick cuticle because it keeps the water from evaporating out of their leaves. So why are plants good? Well, of course, we have food from our plants. All your vegetables, fruit, even things like rice and wheat were all initially plants. We got medicine. A lot of our medicines we got from plants. When you have to get your pupils dilated, when you get an eye exam, that is a plant, the belladonna plant. If you eat cough drops during the wintertime when you have colds, that's menthol coming from the eucalyptus tree. Unfortunately, we found morphine from poppies, and that was great pain reliever. Unfortunately, they found out pretty quickly that people get really addicted to it. Malaria preventatives, cancer drugs, all sorts of things have come from plants. So they're a pretty groovy thing for us, not just a food source, not just pretty, but they also have given us many medications that we need. Next, number 3, they give us oxygen. They take in the sunlight. That sunlight goes into the cells, into the chloroplast, makes sugar, but also makes oxygen, which we need to breathe. We know this about plants. We know that we need their oxygen to breathe, but yeah, we keep cutting them down. We're not really smart. And then everyday consumables. What else do we use plants for? Cotton, wood, paper, medicine. It goes on and on and on. Your chopsticks, your pencils. All of these things are very important that are given to us from plants. And then finally, we have kingdom Animalia. Kingdom Animalia is a big one. Look at that kingdom. You're in the same kingdom as a horseshoe crab, as a centipede, as a sea star. We are all in this big, huge group together. When after we finish this unit, we're going to come back, and our next unit, the very next one, will be the invertebrates. The invertebrates are going to be these guys here. These are going to be the animals without a backbone. And then we will also finish up, hopefully if we have enough time, with the vertebrates. And these are the animals with a backbone. Unfortunately, it's not looking like we're going to get to dissect anything because of this whole stay-at-home thing, but don't worry, I'll find you some online dissections you can do. Whee! All right, so our characteristics of animals, they are also eukaryotic, meaning have a nucleus. They're heterotrophic, which means they make their own food. Or I'm sorry, they cannot make their own food. They must consume others. And the one big thing about kingdom Animalia is that they do not have a cell wall. We're the only kingdom that doesn't have a cell wall. We store our extra sugar or glucose as a molecule called glycogen. Write that down on number 2. I'll show you a picture of that here. I told you that plants store their extra glucose as cellulose, which will become starch. You've heard of starchy vegetables like potatoes and things of that nature, but we store our extra glucose as glycogen. Same macromolecule made up of a whole bunch of glucose molecules, but we store ours in our liver cell, they store theirs in their cell wall, so it's just another difference. Animals can reproduce sexually and asexually. Sexual reproduction in animals is the most common. I did not pick any pictures to show you because that would probably be inappropriate. They can also, some animals can breed asexually, but again, asexual reproduction is going to have a decrease in variation, and it is faster, but not desirable. But there are a lot of animals that we'll talk about next unit that can reproduce asexually. So what's great about animals besides the fact that we're in the kingdom? Well, we use them as food. Not these pictures are food, but I didn't think I needed to show you a picture of hamburger. Maybe I do. That's why I put Bill on the paper. Of course, animals are a great source of food. If you have a chicken sandwich, if you have a hamburger, if you have a steak, if you have pork chops, whatever you eat that is a protein, if you are not a vegetarian, that's going to be a plant, or that's going to be an animal, I'm sorry. The next one on there is labor. We used to use, and some people still use, horses and mules and oxen to plow fields. People in Alaska and up in the Arctic still use dogs to help them transport themselves. We have used biotechnology with animals. They created glowing fish. They do all sorts of experiments on fruit flies, and down there at the bottom is showing some zebrafish that they are doing different experiments on. And then, oh Dios mío, the medicines that we have found from animals, from pit vipers, from pancreatic cells, from even urine, porcupine intestine, salmon sperm, leech saliva. This is why biotechnology is, or biodiversity is so important. We need to have all these different animals because we always are able to find different components of these animals that can help us in some way, shape, or form. So that is it for our glaze over all the kingdoms. Like I said, our next unit will be more in depth about the invertebrates and then the vertebrates, and then we will be done for the semester. If you were on my Zoom earlier, I said we will be having a test next week. So now, after you do this homework for today, it is time to start doing some reviewing. Look on the next page of your note packet. Page 9 does have a review sheet on it. Know all of those things. If you remember, when we first started this, when we were still back in class, I told you guys that this table, way back here, where was it? No, this one. It is on your notes on page on page 2 of your notes. Is going to be very important for your test, because I might say something like, which kingdom of organism has cell walls made of chitin? Cell walls made of chitin would of course be the fungi. I might say something like, which kingdom of organisms are prokaryotic only? And that would be our bacteria. So make sure you look over this table. You can even make one in your notes and your study guide and not fill in all the blanks and kind of quiz yourself. But go over that review sheet on Thursday at 2 o'clock for Biology 3. We will have another Zoom. I will put it on the classroom so you have the link and you can ask me any questions that you have. And hopefully I'll have some more information on how this test is going to go, because I haven't done a test online yet and I'm not really exactly sure how it's going to work. So I'll have more information on Tuesday. Thank you. Have a great day. Get outside, get some sunshine, but stay away from other people. Take care of yourself. Be safe. I will see you on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Bye.